Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 27th April 2016. The first article is related to the Uniform Civil Code and the woman position in Islam. In this context, the Uniform Civil Code refers to that all the religions shall have one single personal law. It means that the greater values of equality, the gender equality, and the respect for the life, they have to dominate the others. So in this case, what the author argues here is this. There are certain practices in the Islam which are derogatory to the gender equality, such as triple talaq, halala, and polygamy. All these goes against to the interests of the woman. The triple talaq, it signifies the divorce. Halala, if a woman got separated from the man and she has to get aligned with the same man again, she has to go through the another marriage in between. That is what is called as halala. So if original texts of the Islam are observed, the man's right to utter the talaq 3 times has to spread over 90 days, and it only has to come into existence after reconciliation has failed. But however, different sects have wrongly interpreted the Islam to their convenience and finally made it to the advantage of the men. So in this context, many of the sects exist among the Muslims themselves. So the Islam is not a monolithic religion. So various sects have interpreted the Quran in different ways to their convenience. So author argues protection of the women rights is critical. Now we are seeing the rise of the women protection movements in the minorities too. Now Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, Muslim Women Federation, all these are the symbols of this. So it is a new social movement that is taking shape. So in this context, it is the time the inward reform of the Islam shall happen, and the protection which the All India Muslim Personal Law Board is taking under the right to religion has to be shifted, and it has to properly move towards reforming to provide for the gender equality. That is what the article talks about. The Malegam reminder. So there are blasts in the local trains, and then certain people belonging to Muslim community were arrested, and later it was proven that the blasts were actually carried by some Hindu fringe elements. In this context, these people served in jail as under trials for more than 9 years. Recently, the MCOCA Special Court, it has evicted them of all the charges and released. In this context, certain rights issues comes up. Though these people did not commit any crime, they are behind the bars for a significant period of time. So who will make the police and investigative agencies accountable for this? Second is, do they get any compensation for getting wrongly arrested and kept under prison? So in this context, if you go to UK, there is Police Complaints Commission, in which the investigative agencies are going off the track and trying to victimize a community or a person, then the complaint can be made to that organization. In India, we don't have such a mechanisms. And the second is, Indian system is suffering from excessive political interference. So the security of the tenure for the officers can be suggested over here. If you go to the France, there is a compensation is paid in the circumstances of maladministration of the justice has occurred. So there is no proper compensation paid to them in India. So we need to provide a sense of justice among the people. For that, the criminal justice delivery system and its reform is very critical. Now coming to the Mr. Isa's visa. You all know that there is a western part of China, there is Xinjiang province, and there Uyghur community, which is a Muslim community, a minority lives over there. Now they are socially and ethnically related to the Central Asian countries. Now they speak a language close to Turkey. Now, in this context, this minority population, so they are facing a huge human rights violations from China. And added to that, there are also certain terrorist elements which are causing damage to the Chinese authority. So, Mr. Isa, he holds a World Uyghur Congress and he is a resident of Germany. Now, as they are culturally, ethnically, and socially different from the Huns of China is one thing. And added to that, if you remember recent China-Pakistan economic corridor, many of these people, they are resentful about this particular development, where exploitation of these resources for the development of outside people from their province has become a big issue. So, now, India has issued this visa for Mr. Isa. There are two issues. India has said that it is a failure of e-visa mechanism, a technical failure, that is one thing. And the second aspect is it a tit for tat for the China for Masood Azhar action? So it means, let's talk about this. Under 1236 committee in UN, the Masood Azhar need to be declared as a global terrorist as per the request of India. And China, in support of Pakistan, kept a technical hold on this matter. In tit for tat, so India trying to show the China the cancer of its own. It has allowed the World Uyghur Congress leader to come to India and attend the meeting at Dharmashala of Tibetan, Taiwanese and Uyghur origin population. So, if the tit for tat, it goes against to the very stand of India itself. The first thing is, India opposes the terrorism in all its forms. Second is, Mr. Isa, he has a Interpol red corner notice. So, India is violating this very red corner notice. India has a high moral ground and it is seeking for an international convention against terrorism, and all these arguments which India is making will get weakened if it is for a tit for tat initiative. So in this context, any of the actions that affects the diplomacy need to be a carefully devised strategy. Now, coming to the Masood Azhar issue, the Beijing is expecting the India and Pakistan to talk and communicate directly on this matter and get it resolved. And drought. Whenever there is a drought, the government shall provide for various relief measures. You know, the frequency of the droughts have increased in India. As of now, we have MG Narega and the National Food Security Act, which are the major relief measures. MG Narega 100 days of employment is promised. Whenever there is a drought, the number of people seeking the work under MG Narega is bound to go up. It means the funds of it have to be flexible. But however, the central government has fixed the funds around 38,000 crores, though it requires the volume around 60,000 crores. And the disbursement of the funds is also not on time. And the second thing is NFSA. Under this, the grain has to be provided 5 kgs of wheat, rice or coarse cereals to the 75% of the village population. But however, for this, ration cards need to be issued by the state government and it is delayed in most of the states. Second, now Aadhaar is linked for the dispersal of these entitlements. There are many technical glitches actually is not providing them with the necessary ration. So the drought relief which is centered at these two programs is major failure. Coming to the 3D optical illusion. So the road safety, there are many articles coming on to this. A few days back we discussed about the road safety bill. So in this what we said is, in India, the responsibility for an accident is placed on the driver itself rather than on the design of the road and other safety measures. So in this context, the road safety need to be increased in India. So the speed breakers which are being kept in India, they are a major reason for the accidents too. Now the government on the national highways, where the speeding vehicles are overturning at the level of the speed breakers, so what they are doing is they are creating 3D optical illusions to make the person feel that there is a speed breaker so that he will slow down. Now, coming to the Sham Benegal report, you know that the CBFC is a film certification agency. As of now, it is performing two functions. One is censoring the films and giving a grading to the films. So, in this grading, U by A, these are the grades which have been given for this. So, here, the major thing is what Sham Benegal recommended is the CBFC shall be more a classifying agency, certifying agency, rather than a censoring agency. The censor powers need to be taken away. So PG-13 or something kind of this category has to be given. If it is declared as an adult category and it has to be restricted for screening only to particular timings and to particular theaters. And the second thing is he recommends for the creation of or amendment of Cinematography Act, which provides for more freedoms, creative freedoms to the movie artists. Now coming to the EU-India relationships. Now you know that recently the Prime Minister of India has visited Brussels to start the stalled negotiations on India-European Union trade talks. These are called as broad-based bilateral trade and investment agreement. So here the major concerns for India is export of the services, especially the software services. For this European Union, it has to give a data protection status to India, which it did not give. On the other hand, European Union is worried about the tariff barriers that are created. So, in this case, especially for automobiles and this particular wines and spirits, so there is a tariff barrier. And European Union wants India to eliminate that. India is expecting this to done on the part of the European Union. There is a move which has been started by European Union for a gradual and asymmetric elimination of the tariffs. So that's a positive move. Now coming to the Indian Express. So the first article is related to the Malegaon, where an injustice has happened to a set of population and they have to unnecessarily take the jail term for the crime they never committed. So in this case, the accountability of the investigative agencies and police authorities need to be increased. And coming to the judicial strengthening, it is not just the executive responsibility but also the judicial responsibility according to this article. So as judiciary is able to order for the government to appoint the information commissioners, judiciary can also give a directive to the government to appoint the judges for the Supreme Court and High Court. Coming to the link, make the link. So here, as the drought is going on, so the author suggests for the river linkage in India. So the water surplus region to the deficit region, if we are able to make a connection, that automatically solves our problem, which has to be given a due priority. Now coming to the National Highways Authority of India and the planning. So the National Highways Authority of India, it is using the ISRO's remote sensing center to plan for the various highways in the country. So the technology, how it is coming in aid, that is what is the point which we are discussing over here. So this is today's newspaper. Let's recollect this. The Uniform Civil Code, Article 44 of the Constitution, and it means that all the people in the country shall have one common law guiding their various personal aspects related to marriage, divorce, inheritance, etc. So, the present government in its manifesto has clearly stated enacting of Uniform Civil Code for all. And coming to the India and neighbors, with regard to the China, the Mr. Isa's issue has led to small diplomatic tangle, but however it has been subsided now. Security issues with regard to terrorism. So, India always stood in the Malegaon blast, wherever the terror activities have occurred. So the linkage of certain sections of the people belonging to certain communities to the terrorism is not an appropriate thing to happen. Miscarriage of the justice need to be rectified, if not sense of alienation increases among the people. Science and Technology IPRs. As of this, the semiconductor integrated layout design will be shifted from the Department of Electronics now to the DIPP, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Coming to Drought. So MG Narega and National Food Security Act are the two measures, but however they have their own problems in implementation, making the drought relief work ineffective. And Masood Azhar case, China has suggested India and Pakistan to maintain a direct communication link. The Sham-Benegal Committee suggests for the restriction of the CBFC's functions only to certification rather than censoring. And state highways, that is highways, they are using the 3D illumination, 3D images as speed breakers. And National Court of Appeal, what the government says is it may lead to a complicated judicial structure, and the constitutional amendment is not easy to get processed. And added to that, the National Court of Appeal will act as another chain in the hierarchy in the litigation process, which will increase the problems and challenges to the people. And industrial sector, Make in India, the defense manufacturing, many of the private companies are allowed for this, but none of, or else the amount realized is close to 2,500 crores. And defense PSUs, they are supplied to the worth of 49,000 plus crores. It shows the private sector in the defense as to mature. And next is interlinking of the rivers, as again retouched in the Indian Express. Finally, the technology coming in the aid of the infrastructure development, the ISRO's remote sensing technology. So these are the various news articles for today. Thank you very much.